program this week, we're going to be talking about trees, what to plant and when to plant them, and what sort of benefits you can get by planting them, because farms can be beautified by simply planting trees, and very good advice if you listen to it on the program. So what people are talking about this week? Well, it seems as though Australia is going to be down to about 1.5% because they're cutting their interest rates. Brent Rawson on the program has been talking about the fact that we should be doing exactly that or going even further. Nelson will be hosting the Horticulture New Zealand conference next week. The hurricanes are doing very, very well, so I'm now admitting that I was actually born in Wellington. We're just weeks away from massive amounts of irrigation being needed, but sadly there's also people who will be on 100% restrictions before they even start. And you'll notice that some irrigators are already going. Lincoln University is putting more Māori onto farms. We're going to be talking about that on the program. And On the Land is about to hit the Stuff website. But in just a moment, it's Horticulture with Jim Grierson. Got to start with the weather. What weather is this?
What weather? It's amazing. You know, every blooming day we get told we're going to get some rain, probably a few showers, and then after a frost, and it turns out to be fine. Days are quite cold. We've needed the frost. We still need the frost. We're well back on chilling, winter chilling as far as horticultural crops go. Like I'm talking 700 hours. We should be at the stage about 1,200 hours, and we would like to get to 1,600 hours. We're not going to get anywhere near that. So funny old year, and it's so bloomin' dry on the ground.
So what happens if you don't get that chill? Do you just
got to live with it, Rob? That what will happen is the fruit won't break. Growers are saying to me at the moment, "Oh, it's good the buds aren't out. You know, threat of frost later on." But the reason why the buds aren't moving at this stage is they haven't had enough chilling to go into proper dormancy and set them going again. So I can see what's going to happen. Come September or probably sometime during September, we're going to have an explosion, and then we're going to have some more frost. And that's the characteristic of what happens in a year, that sort of weather events that we're having at the moment.
So, scary stuff.
Pretty scary stuff, Rob. Yeah, I mean, look, talking to my colleagues in the UK recently, they had the same sort of winter last year. Never got any real chilling, and winter until January, which is our July. We've had July. We haven't really had any winter. Yes, I'm sure people say, gosh, we've had some really hard frost, but days after it have been, although there have been cold winds, there's no real winter with that, and we're as dry as a bone. It's pretty serious stuff, and we will get moisture at some stage, and it'll probably be at the wrong time of the year for us.
Right, snow, of course, yeah. Herbicides, it's been a funny old year as far as weeds are concerned.
Well, you know, I once again affected by the weather, because I was out there looking at some blocks there the last few days, and I've actually recommended to the growers to put 10 mils of rain on them by way of irrigation, for goodness sake, 2nd of August, and here we are doing some irrigation, so we can actually put some herbicides on. Crazy. But it is right. I mean, the first sort of 50 millimetres of the soil is getting dried out by these constant frosts, and it's very dry. Trying to put any young cuttings or trees in there needs to have some moisture before it go, and then follow up with the herbicides. Certainly needs some moisture to adhere those herbicide particles to the soil particles. If we don't have moisture, they just won't be there, and they'll lift off over time and be absolutely ineffective. So it's a crazy time, really, for more things than one.
Exactly. So what about ground preparation? Because if it's that dry...
Well, actually, ground preparation hasn't been too bad. It's broken down nicely, it's crumbled up really nicely, but now it's starting to get a bit too dry. So, as I say, if we put 10, 12 mils of rain over it, a couple of days later they can get in and sow whatever they're going to sow, or plant what they're going to plant. They're going to be okay for the conditions, but it's what happens after that that's going to be a real trial. So guys have got to be very diligent, and you're right in saying that, you know, there's going to be some restrictions before the irrigation season starts, and whenever an irrigation season starts in New Zealand in September, we generally have a really difficult spring come early summer, and I can only see that happening, unfortunately. I don't like to predict it, but it looks very much like it.
Yeah, I reckon Sir Tony Daveron would probably say August, actually, Jim.
Yes, he probably will, and he'll probably be absolutely right. Yep.
So we're still using copper, though, to tidy up things?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, growers, I've just been recommending growers to look at their strategies in terms of frost protection. So you know, mow down any grass, or get rid of that trash with herbicides. and get those coppers ready to go on, because we are going to have some frost at the wrong time. There's going to be young green tissue there, and of course we need the copper for cleaning up any leaf spot or other bacteria that's out there. So they're starting to go on now in some crops, some of the earlier crops, and also in conjunction we'll put sulphur in there too, and they should look at putting some adjuvant to make sure you're placing those materials in the plant, and not just on the plant, but actually in the cracks and crevices. That's where we need to have those materials, and that's where we've got to take them.
Right. Briefly, black currants. You've got a conference coming up?
Blackcurrant conference next week in Nelson also, and yes, it's an industry day, quite an interesting day we've got planned for the growers. There's 2 or 3 things that are good. One, New Zealand as a country, as blackcurrant grower, is in pretty good shape. The Eastern European area is not good. We won't be able to benefit from that, unfortunately, but we certainly will be able to benefit from in the Asian countries. So all in all, it's not looking too bad for the blackcurrant grower. So
you're looking for a good season for them too?
Yes, we are, but you know, I'll be pleased when the 20th of November comes along, Rob, and we haven't had any frost at the critical times. That's when we can really start to say, hey, we have actually got a crop here. I've got a faint suspicion that, you know, late August, early September, mid-September are going to be quite worrying times for growers, no matter what you're growing, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I automatically go back to those big snows we had in September, and that will just kill the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, flying over the Alps the other day, flying to Nelson the other day, up to Kaikoura, there's hardly any snow on them at all. I mean, that's just unheard of at this time of the year. So I'm pleased I'm not an owner of a ski field either, because they must be having a pretty tough time too.
Yeah, exactly, Jimmy. Thank you very much indeed. Next, we're going out to Lincoln University to find out what they're doing to put more Māoris onto farms.
Tēnā tātou katoa, ko ai tēnei, he uri tēnei no te wharetapu o Ngāpuhi, no ngā iwi o Tauranga Moana hoki, e mihi atu nei ki a koutou katoa. Ko au te kaiwhakahaere mo ngā hōtaka whanaketanga Māori, ki te whare wānanga Aoraki, ko Ben Matthews tōku ingoa. Kia ora.
Ben, you've got a very important role here at Lincoln University.
Yes, so my role here within Lincoln University is Māori Development Coordinator, and basically what that entails is helping the university to develop its relationships and its ties with Māori organisations, iwi organisations, runanga, and also Māori schools as well.
So the obvious vision is to get more Māori onto New Zealand farms?
Yes, definitely, and one of the ways that we are currently doing that is through an initiative called Whenua Kura. Whenua Kura is a partnership between Lincoln University, Ngaitahu Farming, Ngaitahu, Te Runanga o Ngaitahu, and also Te Tapua Rehua. And its aim is to grow the number of Māori working on our farms, not only within the day-to-day running of the farms, but also we want to see more Māori within the managerial levels on our farms as well. And so Whenua Kura is a way to develop an educated workforce that will be able to drive the running of our farms in accordance with Ngaitahu, tikanga Māori, Ngaitahu values, Māori values as well.
Who are you aiming this project at?
Our focus or target audience is 16 to 40 years old Māori. So that's the basic criteria for entrance into the program. And also obviously a love for farming, a love for animals, working on the land as well.
Now your students have specific qualifications?
Yes, so we have the level 3 certificate in farming dairy. So that's a very hands-on approach to farming if you want to learn all about dairy farming. We also have the certificate in agriculture, which is also a level 3 program. Also, once again, very hands-on, very practical. We also have the diploma in agriculture, which looks more at the scientific side of farming, also looks at the financial aspect, the managerial, human resources aspect as well. And then a step up from that is a level 6 diploma in farm management.
And you're doing placements as well, so you can just about guarantee them a position on a farm.
Yes, so we also help our students to find placements on farms. The reason why Whenua Kura was originally established was to help grow the number of Māori workers on the Ngaito farms. And as that's grown, we've been able to grow our network of farms to be able to place our students on those farms as well.
Are you looking for more farm placements?
Yes, we are. We are looking for more farms and would be interested to speak with any farmers who are looking for recent graduates who have recently graduated from an agricultural program as well.
Students, you're attracting them from all around New Zealand?
Yes, so from the top of the North Island right down to the deep south, we have students with us from Kaikohe. We have students with us from Gisborne, from all across the North Island and the South Island.
Very good project, I would have thought, and a very, very good idea to put your hand up and get some very well qualified people. After the break, we're going to be talking wool with John Dawson and also more about trees, what you should plant, why and where.
Everybody has a story to tell. What's yours? Maybe your family has been farming the land for 5 generations. Perhaps you have invented the next best thing in agriculture, or maybe something else. Whatever your story, if you're out on the land, we want to hear from you. Get in touch by emailing us at info@ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world. Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We're living on a planet facing almost insurmountable challenges. Challenges we have to face sooner rather than later. The world needs our energy. She needs our ideas, our passion. It's up to us to change things, make a positive change to the planet, to feed the world, to protect the future, to live well, to be the generation that will make a change. Join us.
John, wool, the season, what are the markets doing?
Yes, it's been an interesting season, as they always are.
Yeah.
We've had, of course, if you go back probably 6 weeks, 7 weeks, we've had the Brexit issue. It was very interesting, but business almost stopped for probably 3 weeks.
Because of the uncertainty?
Definitely. And of course you had the exchange movement. The pound weakened 13% or something like that in a matter of days. And of course our clients are not going to give us 13% more for our wool overnight because of that currency fluctuation. The euro did the same, not to the same extent, but it weakened as well. So clients sit back when things like that happen. They'll sit back and just see what the situation, just give them time to sort themselves out and see where things go, etc., etc. So yeah, business stopped for about 3 weeks for us, which was a bit of a concern. But I'm pleased to say that a bit of normality starting just in the last few weeks. We started to do business again. What we did see in the wool market though was quite a resettling of prices, especially for European type wools. So you had the currency, our dollar, strengthening on one hand, so the New Zealand cent price for a lot of those European types actually came back to compensate to keep the same foreign currency price for the actual client offshore, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yep, I'm with you.
There was a rebalancing. So we saw that in the marketplace at auctions in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So businesses started again, which is absolutely necessary because China for New Zealand wool has certainly come off the boil.
Any reason for that?
Well, it's interesting because on the top making side, which is a process that mainly use the longer type wools in the 30 to 34 micron bracket, there seems to have been a fashion switch away from New Zealand wool, and our market suffered accordingly. So
you're vulnerable, aren't you?
Some of these things can last a shortish time, but you cannot guarantee that. So what's happened is the premium that was paid for those microns has virtually disappeared and come back to be the same cost as the usual carpet types. Those wools will still go out, but there won't be the premium price that the Chinese paid in the past. So that's a new development. So we're hoping that things change, but you can't be sure of that. So the Chinese market for New Zealand wool has certainly come back. I think the exports to China, the last figures that I saw were down something like 16% on last year to China.
Yeah,
and that would be a main factor.
But you are also rushing around the rest of the world, opening new ones.
Correct. Well, pushing new ones. Like the Australasian market has been quite good. A lot of New Zealand wools are still used locally and in Australia, and that's been relatively buoyant. As I say, the European thing has come back. It's stabilised and come back, which is absolutely important in these times. The Chinese are still in the market, but they're not the force that they used to be. And I think there's more reasons than this fashion thing I was talking about. I think they have their own problems in China at the moment. Credit conditions seems to be a lot tighter. Their economy is going through a rebalancing. I think our clients are finding it a more challenging environment for themselves over there. So when you put all that into the cookie jar, it's just a more challenging, difficult times. And of course, the last thing we want is the currency to be going higher as well. You know?
I guess reading between the lines is that steel thing is an excuse, not a reason.
Well, we haven't heard a word about that.
That's good.
And I'm heading up there next week actually. And when you go on these trips, it's all embracing thing. And if there's any substance to that, I'll certainly be finding out about it. But we've got no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it sort of fizzed up and died pretty quick.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of politics, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Let's come back home and talk about preparation.
Always important, Rob. Good times and bad. As I've said to you many times, New Zealand wool competes with a lot of other wools from all over the world. We have our niche part of the market, and of course, to keep that niche, whatever the market situations are at the time, it's important that our wools are well prepared, well presented, to keep demand where it is.
Not much mud, but I suppose you're dealing with dust.
Vegetable matter, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, vegetable matter would be the main concern, especially in the longer fleece types in the South Island, and we're seeing evidence of that. So that is a real something that growers should be very, very aware of, and if they can, to minimise that by taking it out of main lines or whatever. But
so it's on the skirting table.
Yeah, exactly.
John, thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
Now, obviously, this is a good time of the year to be planting trees. In fact, any time's a good time to plant trees. But let's go and find out what we could be planting, what should we be planting, and why. And if people want to do something with ornamentals, there must be a protocol to go through to make them successful.
Right, well, on a lifestyle block, if you're starting from scratch, you really need to think about your layout and what trees are going to survive. And for a lot of ornamental trees to survive, you need to give them protection. So one of the first things I would think about is shelter.
There must be several options that you can use to get your shelter up.
Definitely. Your taller options for farm situations would include your leyland cypress, which is a type of conifer and forms a really good backdrop for your garden. There's also your poplars and gum trees. Next size down, I'd be looking at things like your alders, your beech trees, hornbeams. They hedge up really well. You just cut them into shape. There's also your phibaliums, pittosporums. Yeah, there's a number of things you could use.
But get those shelter trees in there first and let them get established before you introduce your exotics.
Yeah. Well, it'll just help all your pretty plants to survive a lot better if it's got shelter. They need protection from the strong winds. Yeah.
And water?
Water is absolutely necessary. Even with dry tolerant plants, they need to get their roots established so that they can tolerate the hot summers. So yeah, irrigation is definitely a consideration.
And much of New Zealand is subject to very strong dry winds.
It is, so yeah, and especially in the farm situations where there's big open paddocks, you need to be a bit more careful about your selection. One thing I would look at doing is, if you're starting from scratch, is look at your neighbour's property, see what's surviving there, what's doing well. And because, yeah, they no doubt have the same sort of soil as you have, and that helps to narrow down the options, because there are a lot of options out there.
And I guess if you do something like Pinus radiata, which is dead easy, you can always take them out afterwards.
You can. It's not always an easy process though to take them out at the other end, but yeah, leyland cypress is really taking over. It's a very tidy habit, type of conifer that makes a great backdrop.
So there must be a lot of different options, and people would choose trees for a different reason.
Oh, definitely. They need to decide, what do they want a tree for? Are they wanting it to create shade? Do they want it to attract the birds and the bees? Or do they just want it for aesthetic reasons?
And there's autumn colours and there's spring flowers and...
Yes, so the benefit with your deciduous trees is they lose their leaves, and that'll let in filtered light into your garden, patio area, what have you. With the deciduous trees, you'll get the autumn colours.
So people are using them on farms in corners of paddocks and things?
They are, and it just depends on the situation as to what kind of tree will be suitable and will tolerate that situation.
So really it's a case of find out what will do well where?
That's right, yeah. So know your soil. Know what kind of soil you've got, whether it's free draining or whether you have issues with moisture. You want your plants to survive and do well, yeah.
Ornamentals, let's have some names.
Magnolias, evergreen magnolias. They have beautiful big broad leaves, make a great backdrop. They're pretty hardy as well in the windy situations. I definitely consider those. If you're wanting autumn foliage, you could look at your liquid ambers, claret ash, your oaks, definitely. Yeah, amazing autumn colours there.
I'm a great lover of blossom, so what about spring blossom?
Spring blossom, well, it's hard to beat your flowering cherry trees. Definitely. They come in a range of colours, sizes, tree forms as well. You've got your vase shapes, your weepers, yeah. Along those lines, you could also consider your crab apples, and along with the pretty spring blossom, you're also going to get fruit, which you can use for your jelly making, and just for ornamental purposes.
If you can get there before the birds.
That's right. Well, there are ones like the Right Scarlet crab apple. Now that's one that holds its fruit through winter, so there's always an attraction with it, and the birds don't tend to go for it until later in winter.
So really, it's a wide open canvas.
It is, definitely. And once again, I keep bringing it up, but yeah, if you've got the shelter and you can keep up the water, then there's a range of trees you can use. You can start using gladitzias, robineas, silk trees, all those really attractive ones.
Shelter.
Shelter.
And the old saying is, the best time to plant a tree is either today or 20 years ago. After the break, we're going to be talking real estate, what's selling and what you should be doing.
Everybody has a story to tell. What's yours? Maybe your family has been farming the land for 5 generations. Perhaps you have invented the next best thing in agriculture, or maybe something else. Whatever your story, if you're out on the land, we want to hear from you. Get in touch by emailing us at info@ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world. Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We're living on a planet facing almost insurmountable challenges. Challenges we have to face sooner rather than later. The world needs our energy. She needs our ideas, our passion. It's up to us to change things. Make a positive change to the planet. To feed the world. To protect the future. To live well. To be the generation that will make a change. Join us.
Andy, the markets as far as rural real estate's concerned, what's happening out there?
Well, pretty consistent really in most cases. I tend to operate pretty much a lot of the time in the wine industry, and we're certainly seeing some exciting things happening there. That's pretty consistent. We've got a number of sales happening in Waipara, and Marlborough tunes on, being the biggest area of New Zealand for the wine industry, obviously. And it, while some people think it sets the benchmark, Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc sort of is such a dominant player in the wine industry that it's sort of out on its own really. But no, we are seeing a lot of entry into the wine market, into the wine industry in Waipara, which is encouraging. I've had a number of contracts come together in the last few weeks, which is great, and the values are holding, and if anything, starting to ease up slightly, but we don't want a sharp rise, but no, and there are people within the industry and people new into the industry that are looking at it, so that's good.
Is it corporates or is it individuals or is it both?
Both, mate. Mainly in Waipara, I think it's individuals more than anything, but certainly, and that's what you see in the Marlborough region, the corporates are very active and looking for larger parcels and larger operations. And Marlborough Sauvignon is just such a major player in the wine industry in New Zealand and the world that it's always going to be strong.
Yeah, exactly, and I guess if you look up through Hawke's Bay and the Wairarapa, that's another area where people are moving in.
Yes, definitely. Hawke's Bay is starting to see a bit of action as well. It's got a big reputation. It's the second biggest producing area in New Zealand behind Marlborough. A distant second, I might add, but nevertheless, different varieties and different reputations are growing really well there. And so, yes, there's a bit of a hot up in the market up there from a pip fruit industry. There's a bit happening in that world. But all in all, it's sort of buoyant in the rural sector.
Lifestyle blocks, of course, they turn over very quickly because everybody wants to have a go at one.
Yes, that's right. Some people have a go at one and that's it. Other people have a go at one and do more. But no, they're sort of moving as well. We're recently in just south of Christchurch, you know, a lot of demand for one particular property all of a sudden. So the market's buoyant. And of course it's got to suit each person, the location, the distance to schools and things, and the area and what they can do with it.
Is it a seasonal thing? Do people sort of not buy in the winter?
I think it tends to quieten a wee bit in the winter, but generally speaking, if people have made their mind up that that's what they want to do, then they're out looking and they'll keep looking, and till that magic property comes up at the right price.
And of course the house has a fair bit to do with the lifestyle block as well.
Oh, definitely, yes. And of course some people don't want an older house, they do want a newer house, or vice versa, or they want to build their own house. So all those options are constant.
Now, with lifestyle blocks, do you sort of talk to them about economic use, or is it really just a real lifestyle block?
Well, that's an interesting point, and that's where I think having knowledge of what they can and can't do, and knowing the GST ramifications is very important. A lot of people sort of look at that and say, oh, well, we can claim the GST and all this is very good. But in fact, the rules these days are that you have to have a serious business operating on that block to justify that GST registration. And a lot of people, or no, some people have come unstuck by jumping in and claiming that and then finding they don't have substantial business to run on it, which is unfortunate. So it really pays to do the homework on that very thoroughly. And like anything, that's not the reason you go in and buy a lifestyle block. You want the other factors to be more important.
Your brand, Harcourts, are right in behind helping people through that minefield though.
Absolutely, yeah. I think knowing the land and having local knowledge and having knowledge of those industries and what can be done on them is really important, and good advice and good leadership into them is very important. I think some people are a bit disillusioned and don't understand all the way it works. So, you know, we've got to help them.
Dairying's taken a fair bit of a hiding by the media and everybody else, really. What's happening in that part of the industry?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, it's a very focal point, and it's a big industry in New Zealand and a core industry, and it's still struggling along with regard to the payout price, and that's not looking to rise dramatically anytime soon. So I think that there are difficulties out there, and people are pruning their costs and doing everything they can to hang in there. But it looks like it's some time off before those prices lift dramatically. However, the whole team is working solidly, and people are hanging in there.
You haven't seen the price of dairy farms drop dramatically?
In patches, it eased a wee bit, yes, definitely. But we obviously don't want a massive landslide of value drop. It doesn't do anybody any good, and creates uncertainty and across all sectors. So hopefully we have stability there and it just keeps going. But we'll have to deal with it as it comes along.
Now, I know that you like to say that people should work with their solicitors and their accountants as well as their real estate agent.
Oh, definitely. I think communication is very important. You know, it's a team effort. Everyone's got to be involved and plan well.
Good advice, Paddy. Thank you very much indeed. Now, just a thought. What happens when you flush the toilet in the countryside? Phil, the disposal of human waste, I guess in a city or a town, it's pretty simple.
In the city, it's, well, we probably don't put a lot of thought into the way that we deal with it in the city, but the process is still much the same. I mean, we go to the toilet, we flush it, we have a shower, we clean the floors, we empty that down the sink. Essentially, once we've done that, you know, we consider it's all gone. The reality, of course, is that in fact it's flowing through the pipeline to the road, which we may manufacture in some cases. And then once it's gone to the road, essentially there's no consequence. It's gone to council, council then dispose of it in some manner.
Pull, 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 pull.
Well, essentially what tends to happen is that effectively it's just diluted amongst a whole lot of other people's waste streams, and that's going out to the municipal systems where they break it down anaerobically and then aerobically, and in fact they're getting it back to essentially a relatively clean water that they can apply back into other dispersal methods.
So it's really just a case of volume?
It's a case of volume. Dilution, I guess, is maybe the catchword. But I'm sure they have at times some real difficulty with some of the things that householders actually put down their waste.
Now, of course, rural people don't have the luxury of a municipal system.
Well, rural people at the end of the day have got to deal with all of their waste stream from their house as an entirety. So there's no hiding what is actually done in a rural sense.
So we really are looking at a system, though, that is very similar to that of a city or a town.
Absolutely. So in this case, we are doing exactly the same processes that we would do in a municipal sense. So the first chamber, we're anaerobically breaking down primary digestion of the material that's going in there. Then it goes from there to an aeration chamber where we bubble air through the medium and there's media in there for the microorganism to grow on, which then does much more breakdown of what you've put in there at the front end.
So that's the filter things that look a bit like pieces of string?
Yes, absolutely. The idea is to have very large surface area that the microorganism can really proliferate on, and if they do that, then in fact they're digesting their surroundings.
So where does it go from there?
It basically goes from there into a form of clarification. So what we're trying to do is to decrease the total amount of suspended solids, and any of those solids will then be captured by a device that then puts it back into the start of the process again.
So the water that's clear, where does that go?
The clear water is then pumped out through from a pump chamber, out through a filter, because clearly we don't want issues with that dispersal. It's then going out through a series of drippers into either pasture or an area that's got plantings in it, or an amenity area.
Ah, that's the purple pipe.
That's the purple pipe, yeah. So within those, it doesn't look like much. I mean, you look at the surface of it and say, oh, there's a hole. No, it's a little more sophisticated than that. There's a pressure regulating diaphragm and form of filtration inside those devices. And there's a full little dripper actually inside that pipeline.
I guess there's not too much in the way of limitations as far as what you can plant over that.
That's right. Certainly we can plant lots of plants on top, but the provision of course is that we don't want any of that waste stream going back into for human consumption. So amenity plantings would be normal, or actually in most cases people just simply put turf or pasture over the top of it.
Now they're made of plastic.
They're made of plastic, yeah. As a material, of course we rotationally mould them. They're made very, very heavily so that the compressive forces that you have in the ground won't deflect them or distort them or damage them. And the material is polyethylene, and we have an advantage over lots of other materials in that it is to an extent elastic. We put on seismic restraints, and you can see on the unit behind us there are two very heavy pieces of PVC. Essentially that stops the whole unit from lifting out of the ground if there was no liquid in there, or in fact if there's movement in the ground it will resist it.
What about maintenance? What should we do and how often?
Well, essentially as a homeowner, the important bits are that it continues to function clearly. One of the things that we can do to assist that is to make sure that the discharge filter, which is above ground, is actually always cleaned. So we do that on a regular basis, maybe every 3 months. Give that a clean, making sure that in fact there's no particulates in it. And then you'll have typically a service contract every 6 months, and the service person will come round and ensure that the air blower continues to operate at peak efficiency, because of course if we have less air going through the system, then the aerobic breakdown will proceed at a much lower rate. We want to keep the oxygen supply up, so we need those operating in good condition. And then of course the pump out or the discharge pump also needs to be checked to make sure that it's operating.
And if you do have a problem, there's a manual and you can use your phone to get help.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the manual available on our website, or in fact you can call RX Plastics and they can direct you in the right direction.
Everybody has a story to tell. What's yours? Maybe your family has been farming the land for 5 generations. Perhaps you have invented the next best thing in agriculture, or maybe something else. Whatever your story, if you're out on the land, we want to hear from you. Get in touch by emailing us at info@ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world. Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We're living on a planet facing almost insurmountable challenges. Challenges we have to face sooner rather than later. The world needs our energy. She needs our ideas, our passion. It's up to us to change things. Make a positive change to the planet. To feed the world. To protect the future. To live well. To be the generation that will make a change. Join us.
Dennis, compliance, and I'm not talking about financial viability, it's keeping people who want to be in business.
Absolutely creating jobs, Rob, in this country, and I can see that there's a policy of total employment there because there's just so many new jobs coming along with health and safety and WorkSafe, all those sorts of things. Environment Canterbury, just compliance and monitoring is just absolutely huge, and some of the things that farmers and the hoops they have to go to now to remain in business, let alone remain viable, are unbelievable.
I mean, seriously, people are leaving the industry because they're saying, look, I've had enough.
Yeah, there are farmers out there who are saying, well, you know, I'm not up with this, I'm not interested in this, I think I'll sell out. You know, basically a lot of them are putting their heads in the sand and saying, no, it's in the too hard basket.
But it is complicated.
It is quite complicated, or very complicated actually, and you need to be on the ball and on time, and of course accurate, because you're audited all the time. And so there's all sorts of things like, you know, if you're a cropping farmer, you're into recording everything that's happening on those fields, and something like a program like Production Wise will ensure that happens. But that can happen on your app in the field. They've got very clever at that. You can do that, or it's homework at night, basically. The end of every farming day, you've got to sit down and record accurately what you've been doing, what you've been using, and of course within that you've got things like overseer, which is a process where you have to have nutrient budgeting. So you have to be understanding things like the nutrient status of your field, the crop you're going to grow, what it's potentially going to use, therefore what you put on, how many tonnes it's going to produce, and the end result at the cropping exercise should be a neutral change from what you started with.
So you guys have got access to crystal balls?
Yes, and weather events and everything like that. Absolutely. We can predict the future. Yes, we're pretty good at that.
The environment plans, I mean, that's another huge albatross.
It is an albatross, and huge, and something that farmers have to do and tick the boxes on the way through. So that's a new exercise, but it's probably healthy because it does actually make you aware of what potentially is happening in the environment, and you do go around, even if it's subconsciously, proactive in that area. So it's not all bad, and some of it has to happen.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good coming from you at the start of the conversation.
Right.
Does irrigation come under any of the sort of?
Yes, well, of course, irrigations, we have to have compliance, and it's all monitored on a daily basis now. There's telemetry and data sending equipment that goes straight to ECAN or to the agency you use to monitor it. And of course, that can come up on the computer nightly to see, you can see where your water usage is at and how much you used on a particular day. So you get pretty good hands-on with it. But that's all subject to the equipment. Well, it first of all has to be certified, then there's can be audited, and it really does keep you in touch with how much you're allowed to use, when you've run out, when you haven't run out. And there's a lot of farmers this year with the drought going on for an extended period of time and the irrigation season going on for extended period of time, waited for the 1st of July when they get another annual allocation.
Ooh. There was sort of a move about getting consents to farm as well. Is that still hanging over your heads?
Potentially, yes, it's out there, and especially if there's a change of use. If it's okay if you continue going on down the same track as you've been, but if you want to go into something like orcharding or grapes or some change, I can see pretty soon that we're going to have to declare what type of farming we are doing. And if we want to change, we're going to have to get a consent to actually change, to carry on, either to carry on farming or to change land use.
Then there's yeah, okay. That's the sort of sketch of the cropping. What about animals?
Well, animals certainly, you know, in terms of food safety and traceability, we've always been asked and still asked to do a declaration, and some of that information that's required may be that if you're using things like dips and drenches and things like that, that you have to record the batch number, the expiry date, all those sorts of things. So it's getting pretty deep and pretty well in there, but you know, we're all into looking after our animals better and being quite humane and looking after our food and its purity, and therefore for the customers. So it's a no-brainer.
But then there's health and safety. I mean, if you put some animals in the yard, oh, they could hit you in the knee.
Well, that happened to me 2 weeks ago, and I went to the chiropractor yesterday, and he put my knee back in. So yes, it is a real thing. You know, supposedly accidents don't happen, but they can. But what they're doing is getting us to program to walk around, again, subconsciously, looking at potential accidents, identifying things, and doing something about it. Not just saying, oh, well, that could happen. You know, actually, if an employee's there, warning them, showing them, not orally, having to write it down and saying, I warned that person. But there's things that happen in life and happen around machinery that you cannot avoid. But you've got to do your best. And of course, the worst things, you know, have a major accident on a farm, work safe and income, health people,
health and safety.
Health and safety will be in there and all over you. So it's a walking time bomb. And I think the thing is to take, the message to take from it is listen, slow down, learn, and be proactive. Watch and look around, because Big Brother is watching. If you slip up, Big Brother will not only be watching, he'll be down on top of you like a ton of bricks.
Dennis, thank you very much indeed. So obviously people who would normally be having a quiet scotch are now doing paperwork or computer work. But in just a moment or two, we're going to be talking to Kerry Adams about things farm accounting. Kerry, I understand that there's a dispute that's gone as far as the Supreme Court.
Yeah, we've had Trustpower up before the Supreme Court arguing with IRD. It's got a bit of an implication for farmers, because basically they're up there saying that they applied for resource consent for 4 of their projects, and they tried to say that the resource consents were actually expenditure so they could claim it against their tax. And IRD said, no, it's not the case, it should be capital, and therefore you put it on your balance sheet and sort of leave it sitting there. It's been through all the different courts, different rulings, and the Supreme Court have come out and said, IRD, you're right. So everything, sort of, they've said everything leading up to the point where you apply for your resource consent, that's all deductible, but everything from that point onwards, you've got to put on your balance sheet as an asset and capitalise it.
So just recap that, all your research and your lawyers' fees.
All the expenditure leading up to the point of the consent, you can claim as an expense. Everything after that point, you have to put as an asset. So it's a big win for IRD because obviously the consent process and all that can be quite expensive, especially once you get it. So it's a huge loss for Trustpower, and they're looking at millions of dollars that they're going to probably fork out. So for our farmers, they're going through the consent process. It's something for them to think about and just be aware of what costs have been incurred when and where.
Yep, because there are a lot of consents that one has to get.
Oh, definitely, yeah, and especially conversions and things like that and all the consents involved. This is just going to provide that bit of clarity around what they can put as a...
So once again, work with your chartered accountant and keep those two totals totally separate.
Definitely, yes. Yep, very important you keep your accountant up to date on what you're doing so that we can get the most advantage out of it for you.
Exactly. So it's just like the Fronteras and the dividends versus the...
Exactly, yes.
Company's office is changing.
Yeah, it's a case of people now have got a lot more ability to jump online if they've got a company and change their details. 9 times out of 10, the accountants hold the statutory records in their office, and they're the ones that should be maintaining these registers. But because you can log on now and do whatever you want, basically, you can fall foul of a lot of things, especially from a tax point of view, or even your banking. So one of the obvious ones is you've got your directors on there, you've got husband and wife, and then all of a sudden they decide, I just want one of them on. So they, for example, drop the wife out as a director. The banks can take a very dim view of that because their banking documents will require both directors, and if you don't let them know, then you could be in breach there. But the bigger one is if you jump on and do your shareholder changes, that's when the tax stuff kicks in. So you've got 50-50 farm, and all of a sudden you want to bring a son or a daughter or something in, so you give them a fair whack of shares. If you do it wrong, you can end up with a lot of tax problems, and as an accountant it's very hard for us sometimes to actually clean it up.
Yeah, because you can unravel most things, but
but once you've gone on a statutory record like that at the company's office,
I'm surprised you can get access to do it as an individual.
As long as you're an authorised person, you can get access. So that's why most accountants will try and control it themselves, but you still have some where they think they know better.
You just hit a nail on the head, haven't you?
Yeah, and they don't tell the accountant. So it could be 12 months after the event when the accountant goes to do, say, the annual return to the company's office, and there's been a change. What happened? And then all the things that you had planned in the past could be gone. So it's something to think about. You don't just go on there and make the changes. It's better to talk to your accountant, especially from a tax point of view.
Please talk to your accountant.
Definitely, because it can cost you a lot of money in the long run. Because if you have a company that's got losses and you change too many shares, they just disappear overnight, and then all of a sudden you're into tax paying basis. So it can be
having to
expensive.
scare the living daylights out of most people. But well done on that spot. GST trial.
Yeah, a while ago I mentioned that IRD were trialling the ability to file your GST straight over accounting software. That trial's proved very successful. 96% of the people involved were loving it, and everyone wants it to continue. And IRD have actually come out and said because it's such a success, they're looking at doing it for the income tax and PAYE side of things. So that would, especially from the PAYE, that would make a big difference because that's one a lot of people make mistakes on. Whereas if you've got it in your accounting software, that's 90% of the time accurate if you set it up right. And then it's filing straight out of that, and IRD will just cut down all the mistakes and their time of having to fix mistakes and people underpaying and not recording the right IRD numbers, etc.
Because once again, if you with PAYE, you've got all that KiwiSaver things and
exactly, yeah. So then, if they go down that track, it will save a lot of time and money for people, because doing PAYE is not a simple thing anymore, especially if you've got sort of casual staff. If you're doing it in your software, you only have to basically do it once. Where at the moment you do it in the software, print out your reports, file it at the IRD. It does take a lot of time. So it could be well worth them going down.
How does PAYE compare to withholding tax and that minefield of contractors?
It comes down to what control you have over them. So if you've got full control as to what they do and you provide everything, then they're more than likely to be an employee, should be under the PAYE route. Whereas if they're a contractor, they come in, so you book them in for a day, they do the work, they supply all their own gear, etc., then they will be subject to the withholding tax.
Because that's, are they looking at doing a computer program for that as well?
Well, the withholding tax can be done through your payroll software, but a lot of the time people don't even think about it. They just have a contractor in, do the work, pay them and move on, and that leaves the farmer vulnerable. So if you've got a contractor come in, there's a couple of things to look for. For example, if they're a company, you don't need to worry about withholding tax. But if they're doing it in their own name, then you should be saying, oh, hang on, I need you to see the certificate of exemption, or I've got to do withholding tax.
Because otherwise they could have to pay.
Yeah, otherwise you're the one that's caused the problem and you could be held liable in the long run for not doing your part of it right.
Thank goodness for chartered accountants. Kerry, thank you very much indeed. Now, if you'd like to have another look at Kerry's interview and the bit of a chat that we had, you can go on our website, which is ontheland.co.nz. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. You've either been watching or you've just missed the program, but I will be back at the same time next week. Until then, bye now.